and welcome back to A.R.'s Tales, aka the A.R.T podcast. I am A.R.T, and today I am joined by Rebecca Lange. Rebecca is a Christian romance writer who focuses on clean YA fiction, Christian fantasy, and historical fiction. And I am more than honored to have her today. She is a huge presence on Instagram, so make sure to follow her, do everything that you can to support the indie. Rebecca, how you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm well. So where can people find you? Instagram. I know you have a website. There's Amazon as well for Goodreads.
Yeah, so I have a website, rebeccalange, author.com. And yeah, I'm in Instagram under author Rebecca Lange. And I'm on Goodreads, trying to remember my handle right now. But under Rebecca Lange, you can always find me under Rebecca Lange. Like I have all of them under my name. So.
Okay, and just to walk right into it, I usually like to ask people where they got their start writing. What was the thing that got you motivated to start picking up this craft, picking up the pen? Was it something that developed at a young age, or was it something that matured later on?
I always loved writing. I always enjoyed creating stories, like from a young age on. My mom, she likes to write, so I think I kind of got that from her. Writing has always been my preferred way of expressing myself, and so it's like whenever I, even like in arguments or something, I am best when I can write it down. Then I can really make my points with, like, verbally. It doesn't always work out as much as I wanted to. So, but the actual book writing didn't start until 2011, 12. Before I always just wrote stories to myself, kind of to escape reality, just disappear into some fantasy world. But yeah, in 2011, 12, my husband actually started it. Like he suggested one time to why I don't just write a book. And back then it was kind of like to get me away from acting because I was spending so much time auditioning and trying to get into the acting business. But yeah, that just started it. And like this last year really picked up with regards to stories. Like my mind has been constantly working on something. So yeah, but yeah, it started young age, really.
Well, you brought up a couple interesting things. So how would you, are you a lawyer? Do you do like attorney background in your professional work? Because I can't really think of other situations where you would be able to write down an argument prior to happening. I mean, arguments usually happen out of like a quick rise in emotion. You know, they're in the moment. I can't really ever think of a situation where you would be able to write an argument down.
No, and I wouldn't be able to do that in that moment. Like, I'm not a lawyer, no. It really is like in those moments, I can argue to a point, and then I get when the other person talks all over me, when they are like verbally really good at expressing themselves, they just eventually just shut up. But I can write them an email later. I'm pretty good at writing down my thoughts, but it's hard for me to express it in the moment when it's like especially when it's a heated moment.
That's interesting. Now, the second thing that you brought up that I thought was really interesting was the whole idea that you started into acting. Where did that come from, and how did your success vary?
That was also something I've always enjoyed. It was I don't know, I always had fun pretending to be someone else, and it was always easy for me to memorize text and stuff, so I always done some little plays and stuff. And when we lived in San Diego, I was diagnosed with depression, and I was like, I don't just want to take medication. I mean, yes, medication is good and it helps, but I also want to do something that helps me kind of not focus on it all the time. And since Los Angeles isn't that far away from San Diego, I just started taking acting classes and like did auditions, and I did a few short films, and tried to get into the business, but it's really hard to get into it. But still, I did a short film about depression, which is not a pleasant short film because it doesn't end well. It's to raise awareness about depression, loneliness, and then suicide. But that's how the director wanted it, and I think that was like my biggest project that I did, and I loved it. Like everything acting wise I did, I've always loved it. It's like acting and writing is like my biggest passion.
So do you think that writing kind of, because you said that writing came about as a suggestion from your husband, so do you think it kind of fills that gap that is left from acting?
In a way, maybe yes. I still miss acting. Like I if I get the chance sometime in the future, I would definitely do it. But yes, it's like with writing, it's similar for me, because it's like I tend to like I try to put myself in the story while writing it, so I know what the characters feel like and like what they're experiencing it. I can picture it pretty well too. It's kind of like my own little movie in my head, and yeah, so it's I don't know. It just took that. Yeah, it probably is a gap filler in a way, because it keeps me super busy, but I love it. It's really fun.
Now, do you think, well, it's not even a thing of an assumption, almost as much as it is fact at this point, but the love of writing and the love of acting started and stemmed from a love of reading, correct?
Yes.
So where's the heart of that? What got your love into genres? Because what you're focusing on is YA fiction, right? So where did that come from? What are your examples of the YA fiction that kind of opened your mind to what literature could be when you were younger?
I think I think I would have to say my mom. My mom wrote 4 books, and I've read them all several times. I don't know, it was just like, it has to do with my religion, my faith too, that I like to keep it clean and that I like to read clean. And she just, the way her writing style just always made me being able to picture it and like experience it with the characters. And so yeah, I think that's what it really started it, like to the way I went, the way I wrote, and like writing style is still my own, but it is in some ways similar to hers.
Now, that's interesting that your mother wrote 4 books, but you yourself didn't get into writing books until later in life. You didn't feel like an inspiration or motivation to do that when you were younger? Because you must have been around when she was editing and writing her manuscripts.
I was, and no, I was inspired, but I felt like, I don't know, maybe I was scared to take that step, because I saw how much my mom was struggling. She sent it to so many publishers. Like, I mean, she's German, so all her books are in German, and so she sent it to a ton of German publishers, but her books are set in the US, like the Western Wild West type books. And so I don't know if that had to do with the fact that she constantly got rejected. And then eventually my dad kind of like gave her a printed copy of her books. And then later when I found out about Amazon and KDP, like I helped her self-publish her books so she could put it on Amazon. But yeah, I think it was mostly scared that my stories weren't maybe original enough, or that I might get rejected. That was really hard for me in the beginning too. When I started and it still is, like, rejection is not something anyone looks forward to. And I've tried agents and publishers in the beginning, and after getting so many rejections, you get to a point where, okay, I either give up or I don't care anymore what they think and just do my own thing. And yeah, I did the last one. I just did my own thing, and yeah, it's I think, and plus back then I don't like the stories I had in mind were more inspired by my mom's books, but also by like romantic movies, TV shows and stuff like this. It was really just for me. It wasn't anything I would want other people to read. It was more my escape. But you started with the books that I wrote now, that I don't know, like a little idea started it, and then it just happened. I think it was just the time.
Well, walk me through that. Walk me through from the beginning, like what are the TV shows, what are the movies that inspired you when you were younger? And then what is the idea that eventually festered into the books that you wrote today?
Well, as a teenager, especially, I mean, as a kid, I just enjoyed writing little poems or stories. But then as a teenager, I was always as a kid, I was pretty outgoing and like always willing to talk to people and stuff. But then as a teenager, I started telling myself that I'm very shy, and I believed it at one point. And so, you just start, wanting to be liked by the opposite sex, and it didn't happen. So I felt like I was hiding in my own little world. So I would watch a lot of like old German movies that had romance in it, or TV shows like, I don't know, Full House comes to mind, and like stuff like this. Just anything that had some romance in it was like, that was clean and nice. I would watch. And then some old Western also, like, I don't know, it was just like a mix of everything that just was my companion for several years, just to get me through the teenage years, and like kind of make me escape from the wanting to be more popular and wanting to have a companion type thing, away from that a little bit. I don't know how to explain it. It's just like, I think I probably had depression back then already too. I'm guessing I just didn't know it, and that was just my way of dealing with things. To just escape reality for a while. I don't know if that makes sense.
No, I mean, it makes complete sense. I just didn't want to interrupt you. I mean, you were just trying to fill a gap into something that you felt was lacking, right? You you felt like a romance was missing in your life, so you supplanted it with TV shows and movies that made you feel such. And really, that's the main thing that we do with that. Anybody, I mean, this entire craft, that's what it does. The text really just convey emotion. What you're selling to a person isn't an idea, it's not an action, it's not even a role, a relationship between two characters. It's an emotion. And if you can convey
Mm.
that emotion, that's it. That's what you come back for. So what you were doing was you were just looking for that emotion. I mean, that's what everybody does, you know.
Mm.
uh I was on the child side of things, so mine was like, action and XYZ, and like, like, doing things in the backyard, and that was my version of his escapism, and just going into that route.
Mm.
We all have that. It's all placebo. It's Jim Gaffigan. I don't know if he's a pretty
Uh-huh.
well known, yeah, pretty well
Yeah.
known Christian comedian. He always
My
says that,
husband loves him.
yeah, he always says that everybody has McDonald's, whether they want to admit it or not. They always have something that they indulge into, but it's not even necessarily like a negative thing. And in your case, it couldn't have been for the better. It couldn't have been more positive, because it ended up into this love of creation, this love of literature, and to like the indulgence of his craft. I mean, it's my favorite thing. It's why this podcast exists. There's nothing better than literature to me. It's the highest point of like anything.
Mm.
Because again, language is like feeble compared to like what emotions are. Like words, like it even goes back to what you were saying. What it is just like a lack of articulation on your end. It's not that you don't have the intellectual capacity to say those things. It's just at the moment you can't articulate it.
Mm.
That's just a fault of language. That's not a fault of your own. If we were able to just beam, emotions and consciousness to one another, it would be a completely different thing. Now, I'm not, talking to the level of Facebook or anything like that, trying to get into your mind, not going into that route. But if it was just, I don't know, more like a natural, I don't know. It's a weird thing. I mean, that whole thing is like basically the reason why like sci-fi exists, and it's just kind of like the kind of science really is just trying to manipulate nature in our own way, right?
Mm.
How can we further manipulate things and just like start plant things that we don't have yet? But the whole thing about it, that what makes science fiction interesting, is that like humans still control it, and humans are, up and down, left and right, well, one person uses it for good, another person will use it for evil, and so on and so on. So, and that's a kind of a great segue to what it is that inspired you into actually the creation. What is the little ember that created your first book?
Well, first of all, my husband started it, so he was like, "Why don't you start writing a book?" And because he knew I liked writing, and once you plant a thought like this in my head, it stays there. And so, like, we were actually on a drive to, I don't know, and I kept thinking about it, and like thought about what topic could I write about. And like one of the first thoughts that popped into my head was guardian angels, and I was like, no way, that can't be it. So I just pushed it away, but I wanted something more unique, because vampires and like wizards and all that stuff had been written about quite a bit
Played out
over the last years. And so I was like, I don't have anything. I don't want to write something like this. I want it to be more unique. But the guardian angel thought kept popping in my head. Like I just couldn't get rid of it. And yeah, so eventually I was like, okay, maybe that's it. And yep, I just went with it, and the trilogy was born.
and that is what started Heavenly Bodyguards, right? That is the first book.
Yes, that's what started it.
So that was 2018. So without getting too much into the spoilers, what is the plot, the synopsis? Synapi? I don't know. Cynico? Whatever. What is
I have the same problem.
yeah, what is the plot of the book? I'll be honest, I wasn't even aware there was a trilogy, so if you could kind of elaborate on that as well, that would be phenomenal.
Yeah, so the plot is it's about a woman who rescues a toddler and dies. Like she jumps in front of an approaching truck to rescue the toddler, and then she dies and goes to heaven.
My God,
And
this is a clean
yeah,
YA.
yes, it is. It's not like descriptive.
No, I'm joking.
But I mean, I had to kind of like start it, and so like in the beginning, she's really angry about it, like because she didn't expect to die, and then she finds out that she's gonna be a guardian angel, and that she will be trained. Like the first book is her training year to become a guardian, like to be a guardian angel. So her first assignment is in Scotland, where she looks after an orphan girl who lost her parents in a car accident and keeps running away from orphanages because she doesn't want to be put in families that don't love her. And so her assignment is to keep her safe, but also find a family for her. And with her trainer, that's what they do. They look after her and like have to fight back evil angels that try to prevent everything they do good. They want people to be miserable, and so yeah, it's like just like how she gets trained, what difficulties she experiences, the powers, like she has to learn how to use her powers without abusing them, and it's something like this.
What powers? Where do the powers originate from? Just from her dying?
Well, no, it's yes. Well, some of it. Like she has one power that she finds out later on that was given to her because of her willingness to sacrifice herself, and like her willingness to or her sense of fairness. But like most of the power she has is like a guardian angel thing. Like most guardian angels have certain powers, and then there are a few guardian angels who have more on top of it because they earned it in their first life.
Okay, so
And she's
no, continue. I'm sorry.
no, you'll go ahead.
So the consensus basically is that when you die, and if you die and have enough virtue, you become a guardian angel. And then depending on the actions that made you virtuous within your life on Earth, then you get certain powers reflective of that.
Yes, that's kind of the idea. I don't really go to the much. It's really just like a side thing, but yes, that's the general idea.
Okay, so the negative of that must take the same effect, right? So that means that the nega angels, right, like the bad angels, they must have the powers reflective of what they did that got them to hell, or however you describe it in your mythos. No?
Yeah, I mean, the evil angels are more. I mean, yes, they have their powers too, but it's like it's more the way they can influence humans and even guardian angels. It's like, you know, they're pretty persuasive, and they know how to get to you, like just the negativity they spread and make you feel. So yeah, the focus is more on that than on powers they have.
So it seems like that whole idea, it seems like it's almost like a simile to depression itself, no? Like fighting your demons, quote unquote.
Yeah, but for me it's more faith related. For me it's more like, you know, like the whole idea like of Satan and his followers, and like, I mean, I don't go into depth with that, but it's just you know, like, because I am very religious, you know, I do think about the afterlife, and I have certain beliefs about the afterlife, and so yeah, that kind of was all part of the inspiration for it, to just, you know, put some spin on it, that is fiction, but that could potentially be the case. I mean, obviously, I don't know that, but it's just, I like to keep it as real as possible. As long, I mean, however you can do that with
Keeping
fiction,
it real
you know.
with Rebecca. That's awesome. So walk me through the trilogy then. How did you then morph this idea into the second book and the third book? Do you have more planned? Is there a parallel trilogy that you have planned? Like what is the future for that storyline and the characters?
Originally, I hadn't planned on doing any more of Heavenly Bodyguards. I just had planned on the 3 books, and, you know, like, just have my main character have different assignments and like challenges, and then
Oh, she gets assignments
oh
from
yeah,
the you know the Almighty.
from Peter the Apostle. He's in charge of the guardian angels in my story, and so they kind of,
And how do you
he's kind
depict
of,
them? Like, do you depict them, in the quote unquote way that we see it? They're in a place full of clouds and there's light everywhere and they're wearing long white robes, angel wings, the whole deal? Or do you change it
uh
up?
no, I mean, it is definitely in heaven. I'm not really like that. I don't really go into that much, because it's just like a side part of the story, because most of it is happening on Earth. But I do go into some um, explanations, like when someone dies, how I picture it, like that there's like a white light showing up when you're in heaven on the horizon, and then someone come walking over the clouds towards you, something like that. So that's kind of a little bit that is happening in heaven, and you know,
But
like, I at the very, yeah.
but how did you depict heaven though? Like, is your depiction of heaven like the one that we we're kind of like used to, that like the in the clouds, blue sky, light everywhere?
Yeah, but I mean, like, that is a part that is hard for me to picture. So I leave that more to the imagination. I mean, in the very beginning, after she dies, she when she notices her surroundings, like, I describe a little bit how perfect everything is. It looks like Earth, like there's lakes and mountains and trees and stuff, but it's like, it's perfect and it sparkles, like, kind of like this a little bit. So yeah, it's a bit hard for me to really picture that part. So I just went with what I felt would probably describe it the best. And so yeah, that's how, or like, I mean, from the headquarters, I mean, no, the headquarters on Earth, like each guardian angel agency has a headquarters in like cities and stuff, where they have like a house that is a real house, but then part of it is not like seen by humans and stuff like this. It's just um like, I don't know, like, it's, you have to read it, I think, to really understand it. And so yeah, she gets, because of that, she gets transferred from, after her first assignment, and like the first book is done, she gets transferred to a different destination, headquarters assignment, and from there to the next one. So it's like, kind of, I don't know.
So is it like a buddy cop thing? Does she have like her partner Or is she one of those things? I don't need a partner, and she's like,
No.
driving around heaven in her sports car,
No.
hitting red lights.
No. I actually the inspiration for the buddy system was actually through my church, because of like missionaries in my church, they are always coupled up, and it's like for safety reasons too. So I always have them, like two usually working together as a partner system, um, and so yeah, that's that they just have to keep helping each other to stick to the rules and not abuse powers, and like do those assignments together. Like, I don't know, it's like,
Yeah, so it's basically like buddy cops. It's
yeah,
like a detective, and Peter is the Groucho the lieutenant. They're coming in. All right,
yeah.
Peter, what's the deal? And he's like, we got some kids running around
Yeah.
down the street. Da, 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 da. It's like, okay, that's kind of cool. So it's like a heaven version of that, but they're dealing with negative emotions and like the influence of evil, right? So then how do you get into the idea of Jesus? How do you get into, and what is the society on heaven? Do they fly around? Because it's like Earth. Do they have roads? They wouldn't need roads if they can just fly around. Is it like Earth prior to civilization? Oh no, you said they had cities. So how did you work that out in your fantasy? Well, in your fiction. Well, is yours fantasy? I suppose so, in a way.
Yeah, it's like Christian fantasy.
Yeah, Christian fantasy.
I don't know. Like, I always have like a hard time picking a genre, because I always have like a little bit of everything in it. So it's like, what is it? So yeah, but I mean, the heaven part is more. There's not much happening there. Like they get, sometimes they go there because of whatever situation, or they have to talk to Peter, and he has an office. Just at the very beginning, she meets God. Like he gives her a hug and like shows her how much he loves her, and stuff like this. But I don't really go into that much, because that is something.
God a he?
Yeah.
With like a white beard and everything, like the.
Well, I didn't describe him. I'm just like, I don't know. It's just like the way I picture it. And like I said, I don't go really into detail, because that is something I can't really talk about. Like, I can make up some stuff about it, but I mean, it's not really something I can really get into. And so it's more like there as a side thing, and for people to picture themselves. Like, I like my readers to use their imagination while reading my books. So it's not just my imagination, that they can use their own to kind of make it their own story, so to speak, if that makes sense.
Okay. I like that concept. Now, did you continue with the same idea going into a third book? And again, if you can go ahead and drop the titles for the people listening on that might want to pick up the book on Amazon or Goodreads. The first one is Heavenly Bodyguards. And what is the series name?
You mean like the subtitle type thing?
Like the series, like what is the name of the trilogy?
It's Heavenly Bodyguards, and then each book has like a title with it. Like the first one is Heavenly Bodyguards, Training Action. Then it's Against All Evil, and then it's Hurtful Conspiracy. But they all have Heavenly Bodyguards in it.
Okay, that's a really cool name. So then, what the third one is? What was the third one again?
Hurtful Conspiracy.
Okay, so then what goes on in that one? Is there like a conspiracy?
Yes.
So Satan took out has like God in a closet, and he's been acting as God for the past year and a half. Is that what it is?
No, no, it's humans. It's, I mean, yes, they're influenced by evil, obviously, but it's like it has like two stories. One is like just kind of to the side where it's like suicide awareness because of suicide attempt awareness. But the big story is happening in, she's assigned to a hospital in Baltimore where there's evil going on, and they are like abusing their powers and work, like people disappear, and stuff like that. So she has to, like, she works with an FBI agent undercover, and they have to find out what is happening, why this is happening. And so it's like, it's getting more into like criminal stuff, like how they make people disappear. Like, I had to do quite a bit of research of what I could use to kill people, or like make them like sedated. I know it sounds horrible, but it's like that's just part of the conspiracy. That's part of the story. Like they're working, like the evil people working with the mafia, and like it's complex a little bit. So it was fun to research, but at the same time, I'm like, I don't want anyone to check my Google search history because of it.
No, it's funny. It's actually kind of funny, the whole idea that like when something is like Christian, it means that it's like light, that it's like it has like no violence or XYZ. When the Bible itself is the most out there book ever created ever. Like, what are we talking about? There's like the world ends how many times in it? I mean, like there's famine, there's plagues, everything that you can imagine, that the worst and the most and the healthiest of humans' emotions are all transcribed within. So it's almost kind of weird that we denote like Christian stuff as being light, when even the source material of Christianity is the opposite of that. It's like the understanding of both sides.
Yeah, to me it's just important that, like, I don't know, like, because there's a constant fight between good and evil. It just is. Like, there's always good and there's always evil. And so that's my main point of the story, is like that the good guys are fighting the bad guys, and it's not just all happy, shiny, everything all the time, because real life isn't like that. I mean, I do prefer happy endings and stuff, but it's still like the stories itself always have some darkness, evil in it, because that's what life is about. I mean, it's like you will not have a person who is like who doesn't have to deal with bad things. Like, it's just there. It happens. It's real, and I try to address a lot of important topics in my books because of it. Because I feel like people need to talk about it more. Like abuse, sexual harassment, like all kinds of pretty dark topics. But yeah, it's like, I think it's always both. It's like there's always a battle going on, so to speak.
So to kind of turn this on the philosophical note, as we kind of approach the end, what do you feel makes the distinction between good and evil, with the whole John and Locke, philosophical debate? Do you think man is innately born evil, or do you think that man is innately born good? And then depending on the answer, what influences either side?
I think people Well, okay. So the way I believe is like, I don't know what other people, Christians, believe, but there was a war in heaven before. So like some of the people decided to follow Satan, some of them decided to follow God. The ones on earth decided to follow God. The other ones, like the evil angels that I call evil angels in my story, follow Satan.
Why did they follow Satan?
Because they liked his, like he made a point of like Jesus Christ said he would sacrifice himself so we can all return and live with Heavenly Father again. He would do that for us, but he's not going to force us. Satan said he was going to force all of us. So we have to come back to Heavenly Father, but would not give us a choice to choose. And Heavenly Father, God, wanted us to have free agency. And that's what this war was about, in my beliefs, in my church, because people were torn. Some of them were like, hey, this sounds like a good plan. That way I don't have to worry about not living with God again. If, so they decided to vote for Satan, so to speak. And a lot of people that said, no, we want to be able to choose. We want to be able to make our own decisions, not someone tell us what we can do and believe. And so that is like my point in my books too, in my trilogy especially, because they we all make decisions and we are influenced in one way or another. And a lot of when something bad happens, a lot of people say, oh, why didn't God do something about it? And I believe it's because he gave us agency, and that means even the bad people and bad angels or whatever have agency, and that if he would always get involved, and he can't, like, he has to let them make their decisions, and then eventually there will be consequences. Just like with our kids, like raising our kids, they have to learn to make their own decisions, but we as parents will warn them and tell them, hey, there are rules, there are things, and if you don't do this, there will be consequences. And that's how I see it, and that's what I try to bring across in my story.
Now that's really interesting, because the story that I grew up Catholic as well. But the story that I grew up on was that it was actually when God was gonna destroy the world, just like purge the world. Actually, with the terminology, Lucifer was the one that came up and was like, hey, maybe we don't kill him, and then that is what cast him down. And that's why that story is kind of similar to Prometheus in Greek mythology, like cast down from the heavens. So again, but it's interesting itself. I mean, just like the whole thing of that, because the Bible was only written down like what, 400-500, almost 1,000 years after the events of the stories, and it was just telephone. And then after that point, it didn't get coalesced until like what, 16 whatever, during what, Charlemagne. He was the one that no, King Arthur. What am I talking about? King Arthur's Bible. So
King James.
What am I talking about? King Arthur. I'm thinking about Arthur and Excalibur. King James. King James was the one that brought it all together, and it's ironic, the same guy that wrote the Magna Carta, that was putting us into, the whole, the whole reason for the saying no taxation without representation, because this king was just like dominating political rule at the time. He's the one that put the okay on the Holy Bible that most of us all know. I mean, I don't know most people that have the pre King James version of the Bible, unless they have it in like one of those like plastic things, or like an abuelita that has one of those like old ritual ones back in the village or something. I don't know. That entire story is such an interesting thing, because the way that people believe it and take it either as like a historical fact versus allegorical, and there's just like that whole spectrum in between. And then I don't know, God, it's that entire just everything is such an interesting concept, which is why I think it's so interesting to like play around with those concepts the way that you do. And you know what, I actually kind of derailed the point that you were talking about. So we were talking about the whole good thing of good versus evil. Well, not really good versus evil, but is man innately good or evil? And you were just on that point talking about the fall of Lucifer. And I think you were kind of making the point of agency and like your right to choose. So what does that boil down to as your right to choose between good or evil? And again, the question is, what are you innately born with? Because choosing is a thing that happens during development, but what are you born with? That was the question that Locke and Hobbes always debated about.
I would say that we are born mostly, well, the way some like the scriptures say it, it's like, our body is human and has maybe some evil tendencies. I don't know, but I feel like the spirit is that in our body is mostly good in the beginning, and then it depends on how we are raised, what influences us, how we decide what we want to believe. I don't know, like there's so many things that come at us and like influence us, and people that try to pull us to on their side or want us to agree with them, and it's like it comes down to, if I don't know, like your feelings too. Like I always think that it is important that you to your heart and not just your brain and what your heart tells you. But like Satan and his followers are always going to try to influence us. They will use other people to get there. Will use illness and bad things that are happening around us to make us lose our faith and stuff like this. So it's like it's a constant battle, really. It's like I think we have both in us, and it is up to us to make it work and choose the right, I don't know, choose what is best for us, I guess.
So again, you're born half and half is what you believe then. So you're born with both tendencies, and then you progress and have to choose one.
I don't know. I want to say I believe that we're more born good than bad.
So you think we're born like 75% good, 25% bad?
I don't know. I really can't say this. I would right now, I would say yes to that kind of, because it's like I don't remember that part of my life when I was born and stuff. But I believe that there is definitely a fight in us, that Satan knows us. I mean, like, I believe that he was a brother of us. He is a brother of ours, and he knows us just as much as God and Jesus Christ know us. And so he will know our weaknesses and he will go for those. And so I think that has a lot to do with how stubborn we are, how strong we are, how willing we are to fight back evil, or if we want to give in to it. If we I just lost my train of thought.
Well, you said something that was kind of like the point of me asking the whole like delineation between good and evil, is that when people depict like evil or kind of describe you, it's always like evil is like luring you in, but like why does evil, where does that illusion come from? You know, you would think that evil is like, you know, some like nasty little troll like under the thing going like, oh, come here, and you're like, oh, no, I'm good. This is awesome.
No, no.
This is obviously the side over here. So what
Yeah.
is that alluring thing coming from? And I made that analogy with the ugly troll just as an example. Obviously, you know, angels can be depicted whatever way that they want to, but it's just one of those things that, you know, evil acts should seem almost off the bat like the wrong choice to go, if that was like, if that's how like the universe is set up. So
No,
where is that illusion coming from?
yeah, I think it starts really small. It's like sneaky. Evil is sneaky. It starts out with little things that gets you off the right path and on the wrong path, like lying and being dishonest, cheating, whatever. Little things that they built on. They like, it's just, I don't know. It's like a voice or a feeling inside you that say, "Hey, this one time, it's not so bad. Just lie about it." And you know, it's not a big deal. And then it gets more and more if we give in to it. If we always choose that thought or feeling, then eventually we will get to a point where we just kick out our consciousness, so to speak, and do what we want to. And yeah, it's like, I do believe it is very sneaky. It's not full blown, "Oh, kill this person. Go ahead, go do this." No, that's not how it starts. It starts out with little things. And then I don't know, like the evil inside of you consumes you until if you don't put a stop to it. Like, I mean, like if your decisions and actions and beliefs don't fight back, I think eventually it will get to you.
That's interesting. I just thought of like the idea of like maybe we're born kind of just like an open palette. Like there is no such thing as good or bad, and then you really just do develop. It's not like a thing of that you're innately born with anything. I mean, like you're either when you start experiencing the world, then you start understanding the idea of self versus like other people, and you start putting things together, and you have the idea of like wanting things, right? It's like, oh, that I've eaten an apple before. There's an apple over there. I want that. And then you have to start putting things together of like, oh, well, that's in somebody else's hand, meaning they possess it and I don't possess it, but I still want it. And like, you know, come to terms with that. And you can either go the route of like, oh, well, I'll take it. Any means necessary. I like apples. Or you go the route of like, oh, you know, I either get my own apple or, you know, there's different, there's not just two, there's not just two roads. There's thousands of roads, but one has a little bit more shade on it than the other. And I guess depending on bringing together what you said, depending if you keep on taking too many lefts, eventually you end up in the dark part of the forest. That's actually a really cool way of thinking about it. Thank you for that. So taking all those ideas together and merging all these ideas for Heavenly Bodyguards, what is the future for Rebecca Lange? What are you going to continue on for this literary path that you've chosen? And are you going to go back into acting? You always said that it's a love of yours. You know, I can tell you right now, if you ever want to come to the US in like a couple of years, I want to start filming a short film. I'll definitely hire
you. Well, we are actually moving back to the US in a little over a month, like a month and a half. And so, yes, I will definitely return to the US.
They're awesome. We'll have an audition.
And yeah, that is the problem. I suck at auditions. Like, I get so nervous. Like, I love acting. I think I'm pretty good at it too once I get past the audition. But the auditions, yeah, they're not my favorite. So that always makes it difficult for me to get, like, most of the things that I worked at or with, like the directors that worked with was usually they just chose me. They didn't really have me audition. Or I did like a video audition for one commercial that I auditioned for and stuff like that. So the audition part is the tough one. That is it's like, for me, it's like a test, and I don't like tests. Like,
well, what about the D-Day itself? Like when you have to go in and there's because now I haven't done an audition, but just from what I've seen, because it's actually something that I'm interested in myself, but I guess more from like the other side of the lens. So the audition process usually has like it's like usually go into a room with like what 5, 7 other people, like the director, some production, just people from production. But on the day of filming itself, you have all those people plus the actors, camera crew, makeup crew. You have people doing catering and running around in the back. Now, obviously, that's like depending on how big the set is and whatnot, but even to small sets, you still need to have people doing production, people doing makeup. I mean, there's even more people there on the D-Day. How do you feel? How does your nerves, like how do you deal with the nerves on that versus the audition process?
That doesn't really. I mean, I get nervous, of course, a little bit, especially when it's like not a movie; it's like a play or something. It's like
Oh
live
yeah,
on stage.
yeah, in theater, there's people watching you in real life.
Exactly. Like I was part of like a traveling musical group for a while in the past, and that was fun. But yes, the being on stage does get your heart rate going. But like filming isn't really like once the audition part is done, I'm a lot more relaxed because now I'm like I don't feel like I have to prove myself anymore because they've already chosen me, so they must have liked either what I did or whatever reason they picked me for.
You feel validated in your acting ability.
Yeah, exactly. And so I don't feel that nervous anymore. It's like more, all right, let's do it. That's just the fun part, It's like, I don't know how to explain it. That's like kind of how I feel about it.
No, I mean, like I'm living vicariously through you right now. As I said, it's something I've always interested in. I've always been interested in, but I just haven't done it. I think during right probably before COVID, I sent out like 2 auditions. Not even. I just sent like two emails. I'll be like, hey, I'd probably do this. Uh, didn't really get a response, but really didn't try hard. I mean, like, just I'm telling 2 emails. That's all I sent. That like if everything I've ever done in my life took at least 2 emails to get the ball rolling. I mean, my God, the amount of email. Life is emails, especially now. It's just a whole bunch of emails.
Yeah. And did you get responses to those emails?
So I did get a response of one of them like way later on, like which was crazy because the advertisement seemed like they were like looking for people right then. And I got like response like maybe 4 months later that it was at the start of COVID. So it was basically just them saying like, oh, hey, COVID, not doing anything anymore. And I was like, oh, okay. And then they were saying that if I mean, the entire project was like pretty crazy. Because it's not that I was like just looking for like some random role, but what they were looking for was that they were gonna make an entire movie around 2 characters. So my proposition was that me and my friend were gonna do it, and that was the only way I was gonna do it. So again, it's one of those things that like I really did not try. Like if I really wanted to, and I'm not saying I have the chops at all, but like if I really wanted, I would have at least tried harder. I really didn't. I just sent out like 2 little things. So maybe going back to the beginning of the podcast, maybe I'm scared of the rejection. Maybe that's what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to look at myself in the mirror, slap myself around, splash some water in my face. I'm gonna have to deal with that later on. But weirdly enough, I actually really like public speaking. So it's what the thing is that, to be fair, I never got the idea until basically the start of COVID, and then COVID happened. So it's like, how much filming is really going on right now? And because of COVID, even if it is happening, how much do you really want to be a part of that? I mean, like, just thinking back to times that we did like plays and whatnot, you're involved. Makeup people are like in your face, like breathing on you, doing this, and then like you're acting. You're and people and production people are all running around. Like how do you live in a world with COVID and everything is masked up and everything has to be like a certain, I don't know. It just seems like a different feel. Again, maybe that's just fear talking, and I need to get over that if I really feel like doing it. But again, derailed you a bit. What is the future for your books? What is a route that you're going to go into? Are you going to change genre? Are you going to switch it up and start doing, okay. So then walk me through it.
No, I think I'm going to stick to like the genres I picked, like clean young adult fiction, romance, with a little bit of everything, and historical fiction. I do have I'm kind of a sucker too for the Wild West period type thing. So I wrote one book that plays in that, like in the mid 1850s, and then
What is the name of it?
Not Without a Fight.
Not Without a Fight. Available on Amazon. It has paper book and Kindle, correct?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
make sure to pick that up. As you were saying.
And right now I'm working on one that I will hopefully be able to release at the beginning of June. And that's also like 1880s set. So I kind of have like I don't know, I just love that period in the US during that time. Because there's so much topics, like issues that you can write about, that like women didn't have really rights back then, and like they had to fight for it, and the way people were treated, the whole issues with the Indians and what they had to go through and all this. Like it gives you a lot of material that you can use in your books. And I don't know, those cowboys are just very handsome to think about. I don't know how to say it. But yeah, just I don't know. Like, but I mean, I'm not just focusing on that period. Like I have different ideas. I'm going to I just started a new book series that I will hopefully, that it just barely started it. So it's like next year, probably the first book will come out, and that's in like modern times. So it's like whatever ideas I have, and I let them develop in my head for a while before I was like, okay, this is going somewhere. I can play with this. So yeah, but it will be those clean young adult romance fiction, historical fiction, and then there will always be everything: humor, heartbreak, drama, suspense. Like I think most of my books actually kind of turn into a romantic suspense thriller. Just the way, like the things they're dealing with, like the fights they have to deal with and stuff, my main characters. So I don't know. That will be, I will think I will keep it that way. I tried out Regency for a novella last Christmas. And I was actually surprised how well it turned out, because I'm not usually the big Regency. I like the movies, but I'm not really the biggest reader of that genre.
Regency? What is that?
Well, it's kind of like historical fiction too, I guess. It's like with like in England, playing like in England.
Okay.
Like the Duke and Duchess, and like also like 1800 something like that. But I've read 2 books that were set in that time period in that genre, and I really liked them. So I was like, oh, I'm just gonna give it a try, see if I can pull that off. And yeah, it turned out pretty good. So who knows? Maybe I will go into that direction again at one point, but I don't really have any plans right now for that. And I mean, you can probably put it under historical fiction anyway. And I don't know, like that's probably as experimental as I will go with writing, just because there are certain genres that I really don't like and I won't read, and so I won't write them. So.
And what is the title of that Regency book that you made, the novel?
Um,
Novella, actually, I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's a novella. I didn't even know what a novella was until I
The Spanish
heard
ones,
about it.
you know, the ones that they're always screaming at each other.
Yeah, but I didn't know that they had something like this. So that was a nice discovery. It's called Joining Hearts for Christmas. It's really a romantic Christmas novella thing.
Oh, that's cool. So you have a lot of things in the pipeline, a lot of things to look out for. Rebecca Lange is the author to look out for Christian fiction, romance, clean YA, just everything to look forward to, and everything you have already. Make sure that people pick up your work on Amazon, on Kindle, Rebecca Lange, and rebeccalangeauthor.com. And you can also find her on Instagram, reach out. I mean, I spoke to her in no problem. If you read some of her books and reach out to her, I can almost guarantee she'll probably respond. Am I wrong or am I right?
You're right.
Which is the awesome thing about the whole indie writer sphere. It's not like Stephen King where you just like imagine a conversation with him in like a coffee room someday. We're right there. You can just reach out to us. Oh, this chapter and this scene that you did in page 48 really spoke to me. Where how's that coming through? We'll respond. It's not a thing that you just have to talk to your friends about. So on that note, do you have any final thoughts, any last minute promotions that you want to address, anything?
No, I mean, like as mentioned earlier, my next novel will be out probably at the beginning of June. It's called Healing the Orphaned Heart. And that's like also set in the late 1800s. It's a story about a young woman who, after losing her father too, her mom passed away when she was a kid. She has to move from Boston to Colorado to live with her uncle, who is her legal guardian, her uncle and his family. And it's like, but her father was incredibly rich, so she has a huge inheritance and dowry, and that makes her a target for journalists and men everywhere because they want to marry her now because of her money. So it's like her being scared to living with relatives she didn't remember because she didn't see them since she was 5 years old when they moved to Colorado. And then this like having to be constantly protected of people who try to get to her and try to kidnap or ruin her reputation until like she gets to a point of feeling really at home again, and all the things that have to happen to get there. That is my next almost done project.
Oh, that's awesome. And how are you going to be releasing it? It's going to be on ebook, it's going to be on paperback, and what day in June so that people are aware, so they can set their calendars?
Right now I'm focusing on, or I'm thinking June 5th.
June 5th.
So we'll see if I think I should be able to pull that off, but that I'm always a little hesitant with the dates because it's like when you're an indie author, you do everything yourself, and so it's like it's like you try to get it as perfect as possible before, and so but that is the date I'm looking for right now.
No, I hear you. I've pushed back my own release date like twice now. I was aiming for May 24th, and now I'm going to be looking at June 21st. I actually just officially pushed it back on Amazon and whatnot. It really is such a hectic process, but the Healing Orphan Heart, where am I getting that from? The Healing an Orphan Heart, June 5th. Make sure to pick that up. Rebecca Lange, thank you again so much for being a guest on the podcast. And again, all blessings, and just I really wish the best for your career, and people that are interested, make sure to look into her. Rebecca Lange, just Google it. Rebecca Lange author. You'll find everything that you need. I promise. That's what I did. No problem. Almost all the links right there. Boom, boom, bow. Do what you got to do. Support the indie sphere. This is the end of the podcast. A.R.'s Tales, aka the A.R.T podcast. I've been A.R. Mirabal. This has been Rebecca Lange. Thank you again, and check back with us this Friday for a group cast episode, and next Monday for our next author interview. Peace out.